There we go. So, everybody, welcome to my channel. And my special guest tonight is Curtis Selby.
Hello.
Uh, we are going to be talking about ancient lost civilizations. We are looking at possibly making this a series of streams, most likely on Saturday nights,
Yes.
um, about this time. Uh, Tonight we are going to be talking about the Younger Dryas Ice Age event and the possibility of its connections to Göbekli Tepe, Bengkulu Tarla, and a lot of the things that are going on in Anatolia that we've recently been digging up and investigating. So, without further ado,
Well, yes. Hello. Thank you very much. I'm Curtis Selby, as you know. I call myself the tired blogger. What blogs at midnight? Likely, you are the one that actually has a lot of the knowledge, but I have at least a cursory knowledge, and so I would like to pick your brain about some things. If you'll allow me to kind of tell my spiel a little bit, um, I had gotten sick about 5 years ago, a little bit before the world had the disease that should not be named. I had my own thing, and it was bad. It was kind of devastating, and I couldn't really do much, and I couldn't think very clearly or anything. But a good friend of mine, he knew that I liked intellectual pursuits and I liked learning new things. I like I'm at least mildly interested in esoteric or different knowledges. And so this person told me about the discovery of Göbekli Tepe, which I had not known anything about. And so while I was recovering, I watched several videos on YouTube about Göbekli Tepe. I especially watched two or three interviews from Joe Rogan with Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock. I learned a great deal of things from them. And so you had said that you would love to discuss that, and I would love to discuss it as well. So,
so yeah, Graham Hancock gets a lot of shit from people
mhm.
because initially he started out as a journalist
Yes.
and he got fascinated with a lot of this ancient civilization stuff. About 40 years ago or so,
Yes.
and he started looking into it and finding out about the little sites that we've been digging up over the last 100 years, and some of the little things that don't quite make sense to generalized hidebound archaeology.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, I just want to put this out here on Front Street. I think that a lot of the reason why archaeologists or hidebound archaeologists are not willing to look at these things openly is because they get stuck in a rut. Okay,
Yes.
they want everything to make sense, and when something doesn't make sense, it's like trying to put a piece in a puzzle and it's not fitting right. So they don't want to deal with that piece, so they're going to throw it out so they don't have to
Mm-hmm.
deal with it. And for the longest time, we thought Sumeria was the first civilization that started that started agriculture and writing and all of this. Well, now we're finding out that's not exactly true. Um, we're even finding out that there might have been writing way before 6,000 years ago in cuneiform. We're finding things now at certain sites like Göbekli Tepe, Bengkulu Tarla, Karahan Tepe, all these other places, to where there is a weird script that we're finding on some of the rocks and some of these things that doesn't quite make sense, but it seems like writing. And I just want to point out, humans, the different various forms of humanity, have been on this planet for well over 800,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
We started with things like Homo habilis and all of that. Um, and Lady V does make a point. There was some issue with carbon dating, erosion watermarks. You see, carbon dating. What radiocarbon dating is basically takes the natural radiation of things and it goes off of a half-life thing. And the thing is sometimes that radiocarbon dating isn't exact. Because the radiation is different or the things change or whatever. we don't look at the little eccentricities of these things.
Right.
So when something doesn't fit, when a piece doesn't fit in the puzzle, and your common archaeologists and those types, the academics, don't want to they want to push that piece out of the way. They're like, oh well, that doesn't make sense right now, so we're not going to look at that. We're
Exactly.
just going to continue looking at the same stuff we've been looking at for a couple hundred years now. And like there's little anomalies. Like you look at the pyramids, okay,
Yes.
and the Sphinx, and there's water erosion marks on the Sphinx.
Yeah.
And
We.
also, the stone that the Sphinx is made out of seems to be older than the pyramids. Now, one of two things could have happened, and this is just my own thought process. Maybe the Sphinx was built onto an older building, an older landform that may have gone through the last time that the Sahara was wet, which was roughly 12,000 years ago.
Right.
Um, oddly enough, during the Younger Dryas period. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So, you know, I have always my whole, I'm kind of old fashioned. My dad, you know, we were not, my family doesn't come from America. We're foreigners.
Okay.
But, eh, we were, look, if there's smoke, there's fire. Okay.
Yeah.
And if, and, my daddy always used to say, there are more things under heaven and earth than we will ever know or possibly can fathom.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
you got
true.
to keep an open mind. And maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree with half this stuff. Maybe I am crazy. Who knows? But I have things that make sense to me, and I've studied these things, and so without further ado, I'm going to go into what I think happened with the Younger Dryas period. As I said while we were backstage a little bit ago, the Younger Dryas period is an anomaly
Yes.
because we had just come out of a major ice age,
Yes.
like a major ice age that had lasted for 20,000 years, I believe, or something like that.
I believe so. Yeah.
And people, first of all, let me make this perfectly clear. People get the idea of ice age wrong. Okay, they think that the planet's a frozen over snowball. That's only happened once in the history of this whole planet,
Right.
and that was billions of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Snowball Earth was a thing, but it only lasted for so long. And then when we came out of it, we had a oxidization event, and then we, currently, how we breathe on this planet. Oxygen became a thing, and the cyanobacteria went away, and the planet, became more temperate, more moderate, whatever. But ice ages do not mean the whole world is frozen over. It just simply means the temperature on this planet is cooler than normal by 5, 10, and 20 degrees of the natural norm.
Right.
Humans have survived a couple of different ice ages. In fact, there was a mini ice age, I believe, from the 1500s to the 1700s that
Yeah.
we did just fine through.
Yeah.
Um, and we're even going through a minor one now. Strangely enough, even though global warming is a thing, the planet is a weird thing, man.
It is.
That's all, you know.
It's
Uh,
got its cycles or semi periodicities that
right.
count. It's like to
It's
say.
just like our sun right now is going through a luminosity cycle,
Mm-hmm.
which will be at its maximum next year and will cause us problems. And people like to talk about global warming. Look, it's a thing. Okay, I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to deny that climate change is a thing because, hey, natural cycles, people. Natural cycles. Our sun becomes hyperluminous, our planet becomes warmer.
Yes.
But
Yes.
there's a thing where and we're starting to experience it now. Um, if the ice caps melt, they're fresh water.
Right.
Okay, you dump all that fresh water into salt water, you happen to get this thing called a desalinization event. Well, what happens with a desalinization event is the jet stream stops.
Hmm.
The jet stream affects our weather patterns on this planet,
Right.
thus causing major storms. If the jet stream stops,
That would be
this
bad.
is this is something that possibly happened before the Younger Dryas period. We are going into another cycle like that now.
Mm-hmm.
So 50 to 100 years from now, we could be in another Younger Dryas event.
And hopefully, we have a better technology by then. But I suspect that the people back then had better technology than we know about them having.
And
And
that's another thing people don't understand. We are closer in time period now to the creation of the Great Pyramids than we
mhm.
are to the building of Göbekli Tepe.
Yes,
Okay?
100%.
And if you think about, the human mind doesn't want to comprehend more than 100 years, and you're asking it to comprehend thousands.
Hmm.
And people, the whole idea of this planet being here for billions of years is nebulous to most people. They
Yeah,
don't even understand what 100 years is. How are they going to understand what a million is, or a billion, or more than that? Okay?
yeah.
So, and people are like, well, if there was an advanced civilization in the past sometime, we'd find evidence of it. There'd be computers and cars, and no, there wouldn't,
That,
because the planet changes.
yeah. And I know Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock talked about this. The the flooding, the intense flooding, and the movement of enormous rocks for miles, it would have just flattened virtually anything.
Well, have you ever seen what a tsunami does?
Yes. I mean, I've not
Okay,
personally been there, but I've seen the videos. So,
yeah, you see what it wipes things out. Well,
yes.
imagine a tsunami that's 100 meters tall,
Yeah.
and it's flattening across the land, and you see it coming, and then you're not there anymore.
Yeah. The things that Randall Carlson described, I can't really even imagine them. I can't truly get, I understand that, the volume of the water just dwarfs anything that's going on right now. Like, he had a photograph. If I was on my computer, I'd show it, but I'm on my phone. My apologies. But um, he showed what was left of something that was, I want to say, 10 times what the Niagara Falls is.
Yeah,
And, the volume of that water, I can't even, you know, I couldn't fathom that.
well, for example, let's talk about something that happened to the last major race of creatures on this planet, the Chicxulub impactor event 65 million years ago.
Hmm.
That rock was roughly 15 meters wide, with 15 kilometers wide, which is roughly in American miles 6 to 8 miles wide.
Right.
Okay, it struck the Yucatan Peninsula going at a 45-degree angle.
Hmm.
Okay, and a lot of people don't realize this, but the angle at which the asteroid hits does matter.
Right. 100%.
Also, what it impacts into also matters. If it impacts land, this is going to sound crazy, but when a large asteroid that size impacts land, it's not as bad as if it impacts water.
That I mean, I don't know all the details, but that makes that makes sense in an intuitive way. But
And
however,
a lot of people don't realize that when these things hit, especially things that are more than a mile wide,
hmm. Hmm.
they dig for miles into the ground.
Yeah.
And this puts up ejecta into the atmosphere. But
Hmm.
it blows it past the atmosphere into space, and then it circles us and rains back down in different areas.
Hmm.
A lot of people think that when one of these things hits, it's just a localized area. No.
Not when it's that big. No.
The description of what happened was terrifying. Because not only do you have the impact point and the firestorm that happens there, but you have all of these chunks of debris raining back down all over the world, which ignites other firestorms.
Hmm.
And then you have the worldwide earthquake.
Right. Yeah.
The whole world will shiver and roll.
Hmm.
It was suspected that when the Chicxulub impactor hit, there was a 15 to a 16.0 on the Richter scale earthquake that happened worldwide. But you also have to think about something else.
And what?
When a jet moves at Mach 5,
Hmm.
the sound that you hear is not the engines of the jet.
Mm-mm.
That thunderclap you hear is the wind dispersion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you
That's
have
correct.
something 6 to 8 miles wide cutting through the atmosphere. That's going to displace quite a few things. And
Yeah.
when it hits, you're talking about up to 900-mile-per-hour winds
Yeah.
all over the planet because it's just going to circle the planet several times.
Yeah.
And all of this happens within a 24 to 48 hour time period.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the scariest situation, scariest environment imaginable.
Yeah.
And yes, things can survive it if they can go underground, if they can get out of
Yeah.
the way of it.
Yes.
And even if something like the Chicxulub impactor happens to us, some of us will survive it.
Some will. I hope.
Not
Man.
9 billion people, no, but a handful will survive.
And Graham Hancock pointed this out. I think it's likely true. Honestly, a lot of the people who end up surviving will likely be the hunter gatherers. The civilized likely won't fare very well
No,
in that like that.
survivors will survive. The others won't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing about that is, you know, it would take something roughly a mile and a half wide to really screw with civilization on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Younger Dryas had two possible situations, two possible impact events. One at 12,900 years ago and one at 11,800 years ago. The opening of the Younger Dryas and the ending of the Younger Dryas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we do know is about the ending of the Younger Dryas Ice Age period. We don't know about the start.
Right.
However, we do think, according to what was seen on some of the pictographs on the T posts on the T stelas at Göbekli Tepe, we were moving through the Taurid asteroid field at the time,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and the Taurids we passed through the Taurid field every year,
Mm-hmm.
and what caused the Taurid field is about 7, 8 million years ago, maybe a little bit more. A comet, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right now, but a comet shattered over the planet,
Wow.
and it caught in an orbital. It got stuck basically, and we
Right.
passed through it. It's
Every
stuck
year.
in our gravitation right now, and it
Yes.
has been for millions of years. And we pass through it once a year, and some of the rocks that hit the planet are negligible. They burn up in the atmosphere, and every once in a while we have a rock that hits that does something major.
Yeah. Like
The last Taurid impactor was Chelyabinsk, Russia, I
yes.
believe 2012,
Yes.
and it was an airburst, and it shattered windows and damaged buildings and cars for about 5 miles.
Yeah. And weren't
Um,
there a few injuries? I mean, no,
there
no, I
were
don't think anyone died, but
there were no fatalities, but there were several injuries.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, the thing about that is, though, that was just an airburst.
Right.
It blew up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Now
And
imagine if that had hit,
yeah, that town would have been
and
gone.
that rock was roughly the size of a Volkswagen.
Right.
That would
Yeah.
have fucked off a town.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have caused an extinction level event, no, but
No, but a
it would
town
have
would have
it
gone
would
off
have
the
screwed
side.
that town off and probably killed about 100,000 people.
On that note, you're probably aware, and I did do I did a little preparation and probably not enough, but one of my favorite books. I don't know if I'm smart enough to get this to work, but
Did
basically,
a black hole hit Siberia? You're talking about the Tunguska event.
yes, yes,
The Tunguska event is an odd thing. It could have been one of several things. There's a lot of theories about Tunguska. Some of the people that were actually in the area of Tunguska said they saw something fly out of the explosion.
really,
Um,
wow. I,
some people say that it could have been a black hole, a tiny
well, yeah,
one.
which I don't buy that theory. I just had the book and wanted
Some
to.
people also say that it could have been a bit of dark matter or antimatter. Um, some people also think that it was just an airburst, and which is possibly likely.
That's
Um,
yeah.
but
That's
again,
my
you're
theory.
talking about another airburst. You
Yes.
see, and you can actually point this thing to nuclear bombs too. The reason why Hiroshima and Nagasaki were so devastating wasn't because the bomb impacted. We detonated those bombs a mile above both
Hmm.
cities.
Yes.
And what an airburst does is it shocks a whole area more than if the bomb hits at ground zero. Okay?
Exactly.
So think about that and then think about an asteroid doing the same thing.
Hmm.
And there's a couple of different places that we're finding now that we're archaeologically checking where airbursts could have happened before.
Yeah.
In the Bible, they talk about Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right.
We think we found where Sodom and Gomorrah was. But what we're finding is the rock, the buildings, the what's left of the rubble of the buildings is vitrified. Stone vitrifies at high temperatures.
Yes.
Okay? To melt stone it takes a high temperature. And the Bible talks about God cursed Sodom and Gomorrah because of its wickedness. And a
Right.
lot of people will sit here and say, well, you can't say that something scientific happened because God did it. Well, why couldn't God throw a rock at the planet?
Why couldn't he? Yeah. For
You
that
know what I'm
matter,
saying?
how do we know it wasn't? And I know this is theology, and I'm not meaning to dive into it, but maybe it was his will to toss the torrid meteor, whatever thing, at us. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no
But
idea.
that's not the only place on Earth that has showed vitrification of cities.
Yeah.
Mohenjo-Daro in India,
Yes.
another place that shows vitrification. But not only does it show vitrification, it also shows radiation still,
Oh wow, that's incredible.
which leads people to believe that there was an ancient nuclear war in that area. I'm not sure I completely buy that idea. It's
I've
possible.
I've heard people say, and I'm not meaning to debate either way. I've heard people talk about the Vedas. There's
What?
people like that think that it was a report of a nuclear war. I
Well, the
don't
Vedas, if you
know.
if you listen to the description of Arjuna's arrows, which is what's in the Vedas, Arjuna's arrows, if you listen to the description of what happens when they hit, when they contact something, it does sound awful bit like an atom bomb did a mushroom cloud.
And it is, if nothing else, an interesting point. You know.
And it talks about that the people's flesh crisped and dropped off their bodies,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that birds were struck out of the air and died. And all of these things happened in Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Hmm.
People didn't necessarily die right away, but it was pretty
Right.
horrible.
Yeah, the ones that survived were not the lucky ones in many cases.
And there comes a point where you have to ask yourself, because every legend has a basis in fact. Okay. Now, this is where I'm going to tie in Göbekli Tepe and all of this other things. Whatever happened to start the Younger Dryas, we're not sure. We possibly know what ended it, and that was the Younger Dryas impactor event, which possibly is the Hiawatha crater up there in Greenland. Now, if the Hiawatha crater is what caused the Younger Dryas at the end of the Younger Dryas period, that asteroid came in at an angle.
Hmm.
Not at a 45-degree angle, not like Chicxulub did. It burned a path across our planet before
Right.
it hit Hiawatha Glacier. And then when it hit Hiawatha Glacier, it shot ejecta into what later became North America, creating
Mhm.
what's called the Carolina Bays
Right.
on the East Coast. Because you can tell, like if you mark where the Nano Diamond Trail is and the
Hmm.
Platinum Trail is across the planet, it starts in the Middle East, crosses Egypt, crosses the southern part of Europe, hits Hiawatha Glacier, and blows things forward. There's a splash field straight into the United States.
Oh, man.
Okay. Now, that means that came in roughly a 20 to 30-degree angle, and it bullet burned across our planet.
Hmm.
Now, They took ice core samples of around the time that the possible idea of this high weather crater, and the water levels on this planet rose by 400 meters in a couple of week time period.
Yeah. Like a great flood.
Now, every civilization on this planet, every civilization, the ancient Americans, the Norse, the Greeks, the Chinese, some of the Asian cultures, the Hebrews, everybody has a great flood myth. The Sumerians, everybody talks about this great flood. And now we're starting to find evidence that it happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, some people will sit there and tell you, oh no, the great flood in the Bible was the Black Sea overflow event. What says that didn't happen at the same time that the rest of this shit happened? Think about it.
Yeah.
And all of these things make sense. You look at the impact event on Hiawatha Glacier, you look at the ice core samples, you look at the rising of the waters, you look at the melting of those caps at that time, and the
Yeah.
400-meter rise in the sea levels.
Yeah. And it's a perfect storm. It would have been devastating virtually everywhere.
And if you think about it at that time, most civilizations on this planet were at the coast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, wrap that into, well, if there was high technology before then, metal
You
corrodes.
right. That's
The
true.
only thing that you would have here,
Would-
the only evidence of civilization you would have would be the stones.
Yeah.
Because
You
anything metal, cars,
mhm.
aircraft, ships, whatever, would
It
all
would have been
corrode after being underwater
mm-hmm.
for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at the Titanic. It's been underwater in the North Atlantic for 100 years, and it's damn near deteriorated now.
Yeah.
And in another 50 years, it'll be gone.
Yeah. There won't be much, but maybe a railing somewhere at random. But
Exactly. So what makes anybody arrogant enough to think that there wasn't something before? Again, you want me to believe 600,000 years of history, and we've only had civilization the last 6,000?
yeah, especially when and Randall Carlson pointed this out too. In just the last century, we've had this enormous explosion, well, of technology and knowledge and things. Why would it never have happened
Before.
before the Younger Dryas?
You
Ever?
you go you go from the wheel supposedly being invented 5,000 or 6,000 years ago
Mm-hmm.
to your cell phone being a supercomputer in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from that to flight, from the wheel to flight was 6,000 years. But
Mm-hmm.
since flight in the early 1900s to now, look at how advanced we've just become in 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I believe there's reasons for that. That'll be another show we do because that's going to involve the Roswell thing and everything else. But um, I think that humanity forgets.
Yeah, we
Because
have.
think about it. If there is a cataclysm and, you know, say we have a major plague, say the word we shall not name happened and it was
Mhm.
worse than it was.
And was actually bad. Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you actually know how to build a light bulb? I don't.
I don't know. I'm not Nicole the
And enough
Tesla.
people die?
Yeah,
Think about it.
yeah.
So,
If there's a 90% death rate, the odds of keeping this civilization are so slim.
and I'm just gonna really quickly say hi to some of the people in our chat. Hello, Dadman Walking 55, Lady V, Spicy Peach. Thank you guys for joining us. I know this was short notice for anybody who stops by. Whoever might catch this on the replay. Um, we just kind of we threw this together about 3 days ago, to be honest.
Yeah, and my bad. I
uh,
intended to basically I intended to do some things on the computer instead, but I felt like between last Saturday and last Thursday that so much momentum had been built that I didn't want to let it drop. But my computer is in the shop,
yeah,
so
understandable.
my options were either to try to do something on the phone, which might have been decent, but I would rather have my computer when I if I do a live stream of my own again.
Well, man, look, I've been on YouTube since 2017, and my first 3 years on YouTube, I did it from a cell phone. So,
Very
you
good.
know,
Well, no, I appreciate that, but I know also that part of the momentum I talked about was there were at least three people who were saying that they would love to do a collaboration with me, and I thought, why wait? Why
yeah,
not dive in? And you were the very first one since basically Netter asked me first,
right, right.
and we've done that, and Deleted asked me next, and we've done that, and you were the third person to ever ask me to do a collaboration since I've had the confidence to try to do one. And so I thought, well, we'll start with him. We'll do what I love the idea of doing a series, even if I get my computer back.
Oh
You know,
yeah, yeah, definitely.
let's. I love the idea of doing this until you're talked out,
Oh
basically.
yeah, there's a whole lot of material. Look, man, I got into some crazy stuff, man, reading some stuff and theories and everything else. And look, I'm not afraid to talk about the weird shit. Let people call me a pseudoscientist. Let people tell me I'm crazy. I don't care. I enjoy reading this shit. And whether it's good
Yeah,
or whether it's true or not, I don't care. It's fascinating. It
yeah,
it gives you
yeah.
something to think about. It opens your horizons. And the thing is,
Exactly.
you have to spend every day of your life learning something new. You know,
Yeah.
my uncle and my dad always said that if there's ever a day in your life where you stop learning something new every day, it's time to just lay down in your grave, pull the dirt over your head, and
Hmm.
be done with it. And I intend on learning until the day my breathing subscription fails.
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know,
hundred
I
percent.
I'm always looking at weird new esoteric things. I come up with my own theories. Look, this whole like one to one to one to one, that didn't come from anybody else. That was my own. Hey, this makes sense, and this series of events. Hey, let's think about this.
Hmm. Hmm.
Look, believe it, don't believe it, whatever.
Yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
watch a channel called the Y Files on YouTube.
Yes, I listened to one of his
And
on the yeah.
AJ likes to talk about a lot of weird things, and he doesn't believe half of what he talks about. And in fact, he debunks a lot of it. But the thing is he's willing to sit there and talk to you about it
Yes.
and put the theories
Yeah.
out there. Nothing hurts to talk about this stuff, okay?
Right.
And a lot of people who get this, okay. So, and I know I'm all over the place right now. The human
Okay.
mind is the strongest computer on the face of the earth.
Yes.
Okay, and the only and then the thing about the human mind is we can trick ourselves
Hmm.
into
Often.
things, and if you allow society to keep you closed minded, your brain is going to tell you things can't happen,
Yes.
and then you're going to psychosomatically fuck yourself.
Yeah. Well,
Plain
it,
and simple.
it's basically a big part of what has happened to me. So I, I I I grew up. I was a weird kid, and I read anything I could get my hands on. Now I was in a small town, so I couldn't really get my hands on a lot of things, but this was one of the early things that I read. I don't know if it's going to
The
show up.
world's last mysteries. I
Yeah,
see that. Yeah.
yes. It's basically um, it basically talks about Atlantis. It talks about Easter Island. It talks about when the Sahara was green and the Great Pyramids. So these are things that I was very interested in as a child, and
The
then
very first thing that got me into the very first book that got me into the weirdness. Okay. My dad had a library room in our house. We had a library in our house,
that's cool.
and it was wall to wall shelves.
Hmm.
And my dad had everything in there, fiction to nonfiction, esoterica. He had some Wiccan books, and I mean, he had all sorts of shit in there. And my dad always said, nothing is off limits. Knowledge is knowledge.
Right.
So I would spend hours in that room,
Mm-hmm.
just poring over the random the books and the smell of books, the tactile feel, the
Mm-hmm.
everything. It,
Mm-hmm.
it it transports you to a place where you don't have to be in the world that tells you things aren't possible.
Exactly.
And the very
Uh,
first book that ever got me interested in this stuff was a Time Life book of all things called Mysteries of the Unexplained.
mm-hmm.
If you didn't have the dust jacket on it, it was a bright blue marbleized cover, and it was probably 1,000 pages. And it had
Wow.
little journal entries in it about it had blurbs and it had sections. You had, mysterious disappearances. There was stuff in there about coincidences. There was stuff in there about ancient civilizations. There was
Mm-hmm.
stuff in there about the Dead Sea Scrolls. There was stuff, just all sorts of weird shit, man.
Mm-hmm. Just
Spontaneous
all over the
human
place.
combustion, and fucking aliens and shit. And I poured over that book every day. I
Mm-hmm.
must have read it cover to cover
Multiple
70,
times.
80 times in a year.
Wow. That's
And I
amazing.
committed a lot of this stuff to memory. And some of it's been debunked, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Some of it was just people telling stories, man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah,
okay too.
that
But
happens.
always remember there's always a basis of fact in legends. Every
Mm-hmm.
legend has a basis of fact in it.
Exactly.
That's everything. Werewolves, vampires, aliens, all of it. There's something that touched off those legends in our world. There's something that brought those stories ahead. Have you ever wondered why humans, most of us, are uncontrollably afraid of the dark? Think
Oh,
about it, people.
yeah.
Have you ever wondered where arachnophobia comes from?
Yeah.
Think
Yeah.
about it. There had to have been a time, sometime in the past, something we don't remember, that happened to cause those phobias to become a societal thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure that, especially the fear of the dark. I mean,
Well,
before we had fire, the dark had to be.
for 40,000 years, we shared the planet with a species called Neanderthalensis.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
we fought each other for territory and for resources and for everything else. And now we're finding out it's possible Neanderthals didn't look like we think they do. It's
Right.
possible Neanderthals might have been real life orcs.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were built
Basically.
bigger than us. They were sturdier than us. They might have had fur all over their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Their eyes could have had that cat like thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
They were twice as strong, and they
But
hunted us,
still
not
very
just for
smart.
food, but for mating purposes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we, as Homo sapiens, we were kind of squishy.
Yeah.
And we hid in caves, and these things would hit our villages, and we finally bred them out, or
Yep.
killed them off, or
A little both, probably.
and then of course there was a supervolcanic eruption in Italy right around the time of the dying off the Neanderthals. It's called the Campi Flegrei eruption, Ignimbrite eruption, which they lived a lot in. Neanderthal came from Europe,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Homo sapiens came from the Levant, came from the Middle East, in
Mm-hmm.
Africa, and those areas like that. So we just retreated,
Yeah.
and we let the supervolcano take out the enemy.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then also we interbred with them. They were bigger, stronger, and faster, but we were more intelligent.
Yeah.
We had better reasoning skills. Not saying that Neanderthal was stupid, because they
I,
weren't.
I've heard that they had comparatively good reasoning skills, but yeah, I also believe ours was at least better
We
enough.
were better at adapting than they were,
Yeah.
and that was the edge we had.
Yeah.
We could adapt. We could figure out tools. They were still behind.
Yeah.
They had the same brain pan as us. They had the same brain size as
Mm-hmm.
us, but they were not as adaptive as we were.
Yeah. I've heard that they had, that it's possible that they had language. Uh,
Language is possible. We do know that they had funerary rites.
hmm
That
Yes.
is a fact. They had funerary rites. We also are now finding out they might have had music. Um,
Yes. Go
we have
ahead.
found a bone flute
Hmm
from Neanderthal times that was found in a Neanderthal burial area. They may have actually made music.
Yeah.
We do know that they did create art. The Lascaux cave paintings are not Homo sapien; they are Neanderthal.
Yeah.
Um, we also do know that Neanderthal still lives in our bloodstream.
Yes.
The DNA of
Yes.
Neanderthals is still there. It's in about 70% of the population of this planet,
Yeah. So they're
which
not
means that
really
they
dead.
interbred with us.
Yeah. They're just part of us now.
Yeah. It's possible we got blue eyes from them.
Hmm
It's possible that diabetes and lupus came from them.
Yay.
It's possible that a lot of the different things that Homo sapiens deal with these days came from other human outliers.
Yes.
We do know that at one time there were 5 different species of humans that lived together on this planet: Homo nalindi, Denisovan,
hmm
Neanderthalensis, Homo sapiens, and Homo floresiensis, or Hobbit people.
Yes. The Hobbit people. That
Um,
that's
it's
cool.
possible the most recently found of evidence of one of those species is Homo nalindi, which we have taken to calling Dragon Man.
That one
It's
I don't know about. I know
we've
about the
we
others,
found
but
a skull and we found part of a jawbone,
hmm
and from the size of the skull and the size of the jawbone, it's possible that this particular species stood 7 foot tall or bigger,
wow, pretty tall.
um, and were stockier built,
Hmm
which would lead to the legends of giants,
Giants, yeah, the Nephilim, which
the Nephilim.
yeah, yeah,
Now, that being said, Göbekli Tepe is a very interesting place.
that is true.
There is pictographs and a story being told on the T monoliths that could possibly give us a star map and tell us when the event happened. We're still studying that. There's some
Right.
idea behind it, but we're still studying that.
Yeah, I know Graham had talked about
Right.
something about that. I don't remember the details perfectly, but
We
yeah,
know that Göbekli Tepe is 10 to 12,000 years old.
yes,
It's possibly a temple or a meeting complex that we buried.
yes, I had heard that there's actually several,
Yeah.
and they were
Now,
all buried.
we have found others that are quite a bit older,
Hmm
that date from before the Younger Dryas event, the
Yeah.
start of the Younger Dryas event. Bengkulu Tarla
hmm
is what we're calling a residential area, and it's roughly 20 miles above in the Anatolia range from Göbekli Tepe.
Okay.
What we're seeing now is these different areas: Karahan Tepe, Bengkulu Tarla. Uh, uh, there's a couple of others I'm not recalling the names of at the moment, but it's a large metropolitan area, roughly the size of New York City.
Mm. Wow.
And there's different areas. Bengkulu Tarla was a residential area. We're even possibly finding out that they may have had plumbing.
Yes. Well, one of the funny things, that book that I just showed you actually had a chapter about, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but I believe it's Châteauhuyuk or something like
Yeah,
that.
Chateauhuyek.
A video I watched today claims that that was kind of an outlier of this same culture.
And it could very well be. Now, there are some other civilizations that were doing things before the Younger Dryas. We're finding out now that civilization has been going on for way longer than we thought. Sumeria is no longer the birthplace of human civilization,
Right.
um, because we're finding evidence of things 10,
Much older.
20, almost 50,000 years older than that
Mm-hmm.
in the Anatolia region. And they don't even get me started on Gondom Padang, which could be 100,000 years old. And
Yes.
Bonaparte down there in the same area as Gunung. There's all these areas that are far older than we expect.
Exactly.
And
Now,
you
go
know,
ahead.
we talk about cyclical cataclysm
Mm-hmm.
and how easy it would be just to push us back to the Stone Age.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all it would take is one little rock falling from space
Yeah.
for us to
Back to
forget how
the,
to make a light bulb.
yeah.
And
And
after a couple, and even if you survive and you have all of the knowledge that you have, in a couple of generations, your descendants aren't.
no.
People are going to start forgetting. People are
Yeah.
going to start looking at things differently. I'm currently reading a book series right now that I've read before called the Emberverse series. It's by a guy named S.M. Sterling.
Okay.
It's alternate history, but it's also
Cool.
science fiction. And basically, all electricity stops working. The fundamentals of electricity, the fundamentals of gunpowder doesn't burn. Um, Something fundamentally in the physics of that whole situation, of the combustion engine, of the electricity, all of it stops working. And we are in a 3 month time period pushed back to medieval times.
Wow.
People start building feudal situations in the United States, in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. Portland becomes part of the Portland Protectorate Association, which is led
Mm-hmm.
by a man who used to do SCA by the name of, I can't remember his name at the moment off the top of my head, but he goes by the name the Lord Protector. And there's these other little groups like this one girl who starts out as being part of the Bear Killer Squad. Starts this thing called the Dunedain Rangers because she was obsessed with the Lord of the Rings. So she starts the Dunedain Rangers.
Sign me up.
There's Clan Mackenzie that's started by a little half Irish chick uh, that was a Wiccan. She starts Clan Mackenzie. Just like all these little groups that get together and this is what's going to happen if civilization falls.
Right.
And you never
Right.
know how on the brink you are.
No, you don't, because they had zero warning in the Younger Dryas, and
No. And
I
you're not a rock coming from the sky. You're going to have zero warning. And even if they knew it was coming, the fuck were they going to do about it in the
what would
first
they do?
place?
Yeah, I
And,
one of
and
the
even
hmm
now, do you realize that the number of people watching the NEOs that are near our planet, the near Earth objects, would not staff a McDonald's?
yeah, I know that was something that Graham Hancock talked about in one of the later interviews that he had, was that there are some like legitimate. I mean, not saying that this isn't legitimate, but non-controversial, legitimate astronomers who realize that this is BS,
Yeah,
and they were trying to get some funding. I
there
think.
are
Go
there are
ahead.
3,600 near Earth objects that we have cataloged. We just recently, a couple of months ago, had one pass the Earth that was roughly the size of the Empire State Building, which would have caused a lot of damage had it hit us.
Yes.
It powder
Yes.
burned us. It came within 100,000 miles, which is roughly between the Earth and the Moon.
Yeah. It's
And we
close
had
to that.
lost track of it 5 years ago.
Oh man, that's
So, what happens if we lose track of one of the bigger ones?
yeah.
What happens if, say, for example, Apophis hits that keyhole in 2029? When it comes back around in 2036, it'll hit
Mm-hmm.
us.
Yeah.
What if asteroid Bennu, which is set to hit us in 100 years, hits us?
Hits us earlier than that. Yeah.
Hits us earlier than that. How are we really sure where these keyholes are? We're not. This is all theory, man.
Yeah.
We're looking at where they moved at one point, but all it takes is a small thing out in space to perturb the movement of these things and put them to a different path.
I remember, according to Graham Hancock, the funding at that time, and this was, I want to say 6, 7, maybe 5 years, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, that the funding that the government puts into tracking these objects is less than the annual budget of a large McDonald's.
Yeah. And there's only about 100 people watching the sky right now.
Yes.
In
Yeah.
9 billion individuals on this planet, and there's only 100 of us watching the sky.
Well, it's not important. That's
Now,
next quarter's problem.
yeah,
So
now we have 10 minutes before I plan on ending this stream.
yes, sir.
It's actually been a good starter for what we're going to talk about. And
I
I'll
think so.
actually go more in depth the next episode about what Gobekli Tepe involves and everything else. This is just getting us set up for what we're going to be talking about. Um, Future shows, we'll be talking about Atlantis, Lemuria. We'll go into each different, but we're going to dedicate each show to a different ancient civilization.
That sounds good. Go ahead.
Now, I want to kind of go through some of the things that is being said in the chat here.
Oh, yes.
Weird is fun. Yes, I do agree, Lady V. What do y'all think about mud fossils? Okay, so we're going to actually have an episode on Tartaria and the possibility of the mud flood. Um, I'm not sure I quite subscribe to the idea, but it's a fascinating story. So we're going to talk about that. She says here when I was talking about the Neanderthals and how they hunted us, and how they may possibly be what caused us to fear the dark. The devil roams at midnight, the witching hour. It's quite possible many creatures we don't know about hunted at night. It's true. There is something to be said for numerous people all over the world waking up at 3:15 in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And 3:15 in the morning is a perfect time for a Neanderthal raiding party.
Yeah.
Think about it. And you got these creatures come out of the dark, and they look like orcs, and they start burning your civilization, your village to the ground, and they carry off your women. And yeah, I mean, think about it.
You'd
There's a
be
lot of reasons
terrified.
why we fear the dark.
Hey, I think the terror birds, I don't know if they hunted in the day or the night, but I'm sure the terror birds were a great source of fear, too. I mean,
Well, also think about it. 90, like a good 85% of the population has arachnophobia.
yep.
I wonder if at some time on this planet we did not have giant arachnids that maybe we had to deal with.
Yeah. Well, even now we've got the giant spiders in the Amazon.
The biggest spider in the world is the Goliath bird eater. I actually owned one at one time.
Oh, nice.
They are roughly the size of a dinner plate.
Mm-hmm.
A good with legs and body. You're talking a good well, 2 foot across.
Yeah.
They're kind of big.
Yeah.
Um,
They're big
they
enough
are
to creep me
they
out.
are ginormous puppies though. Like
Yeah.
they
I've
are
heard
some
they're
of the
big.
most docile spiders in the world. Um, Now some of the spiders in Australia I'd rather not deal with. You have funnel webs. Funnel webs are evil. Um, but no, the South American large spiders are mostly puppies.
Yeah.
Um, the something happened to the creatures in Australia. They all hate us and want to kill us. Um,
Yeah.
the, the only
Yeah.
laid back creatures in Australia are the bearded dragons, and that's because they mostly hang out on Ayers Rock, Uluru, and they just chill. Like, I
Yeah.
was down in Australia at one point years and years ago, and I went out to Ayers Rock because we took a tour. I actually have some Aborigine friends
Oh,
that
that's
live out
cool.
there, and they took me out to Ayers Rock because it was part of the Dreamtime. You know, I went through their walkabout and the Dreamtime and all of that, and fascinating stuff, man. It has to do with hallucinogens and a whole lot of other stuff, but hey, it's fun. I've actually done quite a bit of like native spirit quests and stuff like that. My ex-wife was Lakota.
Oh, that's cool.
Her grandfather was a medicine man. He took me through a smoke hole ceremony. He took me on my spirit quest. I've talked to my totems. And look, all of it does involve some sort of psychoactive narcotic. Okay? But who's to say that doesn't open up our mind to what we forget about anyway?
Well, yeah, I know. Again, this is Graham Hancock, and I used to be the biggest prude ever. So but my mind's opened up a little bit to some of these things. I know Graham Hancock talking about his ayahuasca uh,
Ayahuasca,
experience.
DMT,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
ayahuasca. Wow. That's all I have to say about that.
Gotcha.
Wow.
I know he says it changed his life.
It
Uh,
can. It really can. And what it does is what Lady V says down here. It says most believe those psychotropic drugs open the inactive parts of the brain. They do. They activate certain parts of your brain you don't use. Um, Remember, the capacity of the human mind is vast, and we only use a certain amount of it.
Exactly.
If we were able to fully unlock the human mind, think of the possibilities. Even Einstein, one of the smartest men ever, said if you could unlock the full potential of the human brain, you might be able to fly without the aid of a plane.
Yeah. Well, one of the videos I watched in vague preparation to this was one about Nikola Tesla, and
Dude, Tesla was on another level.
that was
And
there's so much about that.
that's actually part of why I have a problem with the Trump family.
I'm
When Tesla died, there was 80 something trunks of his in the hotel that he died in New York City.
Oh wow.
Only 46 of them made it home to Cluj-Napoca in Romania, to the little museum that they built for him in his home birthplace. There were 56 trunks missing.
Oh
Now,
no.
there's documentation from the United States government where they signed for some of his patents. And you know who signed those patents?
Uh,
Donald Trump's uncle.
really,
Yes.
really.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Well, I can't help but think. I mean, I've heard it before, but the video just reiterated it. His vision was virtually free energy for everyone, for everything,
it would work.
and we can't. The Rockefellers, and I don't want to get too deep down that, but
Westinghouse,
they
the
stopped it.
Rockefellers, they stopped him.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wardenclyffe Tower, which was the first of his Tesla coils. The way it would work. Okay, do you understand what ley lines are? Yes.
Yes, I mean, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So if we set up um, 8 major Tesla coils on the major ley points on the planet, and then we set out 16 to 24 smaller ones on the smaller ley line access points, and then set the whole system to light, we could give the world free electricity. Now, the only problem with that is it would alter the climate somewhat. That's something else we'll go into on another show. Um, but see, mankind is too worried about making money.
Hmm.
They don't want to give you anything for free.
Mm-mm.
Did you know
No.
that Tesla described the smartphone in the 1920s?
Yeah, that came up on the video that I watched. That's
In
crazy.
fact, let me find that quote really quick.
While he's looking that up, I remember on the video that he had built a tower. I want to say it was in 1924, and he laid out light bulbs in the ground. I can't remember the space, but it was for hundreds of yards, maybe a mile, and they lit up with no wires or anything
Mm-hmm.
connecting. And to me, I mean, that's insane. Why in the world are we not using? But if there's an environmental thing, I understand that. But go ahead. Have you found the quote?
Yeah, I believe I found it. Give me a second.
Okay.
Oh, stop it with this Copilot thing, dude. Leave me alone.
What, the internet trying to do something crazy to you?
Yeah. Okay, so this was his exact quote. From the inception of the wireless system, I saw that this new art of applied electricity would be of greater benefit to the human race than any other scientific discovery, for it virtually eliminates distance. The majority of the ills from which humanity suffers are due to the immense extent of terrestrial globe and the inability of individuals and nations to come into close contact. Wireless will achieve the closer contact through transmission of intelligence, transport our bodies and materials, and conveyance of energy. That was the start of it. Now I've got to find the rest of this quote. Basically, what it amounts to is he says that eventually we would be able to, because where is it at? Oh, here it is. When wireless is perfectly applied to the whole Earth, will be converted into a huge brain, which is in fact all things being particles of real and rhythmic whole. We shall be able to communicate with one another instantly, irrespective of distance. Not only this, but through television and telephony, we shall see and hear one another as perfectly as though we were face to face, despite intervening distances of thousands of miles. And the instrument through which we shall be able to do all of this will fit in our vest pocket. That came from a quote from 1926.
That's insane. Well,
Now, he's not only talking about the cell phone, he's talking about the internet there.
he is. He 100% is.
And
That's wild to think of.
this is a man who described this almost 100 years ago.
Yeah, that's wild. But you know, Rockefeller had to remove his funding, and
Westinghouse
uh,
removed his funding and shut down Wardenclyffe Tower because when Tesla said, "Hey, Mr. Westinghouse, we're going to be able to give the world," when the words free came out of Tesla's mouth, Westinghouse went, "Whoa, no, 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 no. You don't
yeah,
understand. I have to make bank on this thing."
yeah, exactly. And on one hand, I understand the capitalistic need to make a profit, but man, surely there could have been a way to make that profitable for him, but yet still liberate the entire world. The small mindedness of it just baffles.
The problem with humanity is that we don't understand what exactly. Okay, so I'm going to sound a little bit, I don't know, negative about the human race right now.
Been there.
But humanity, individual human beings are interesting, beloved creatures. Humanity as a whole, though, very selfish. And everybody, and I don't care who you are, you're always out either for yourself or yours, you and yours.
Yeah.
We very rarely think about anybody else. It's always, what can I get for me and mine? What can I do to protect me and my own people?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So anything that's going to put money in your pocket so you can take care of you and yours is going to look good to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not always the best way to be, in my opinion, but it's the way of the world.
It is the way of the world, for good or ill. It's the way of the
And,
world.
there's a quote that I use all the time, and I even put it in your chat the other night. When the power of love outweighs the love of power, then we will truly be at peace.
That was a great quote.
The problem with that is it very rarely will ever happen.
Yeah. I just kind of despair. Again, not to sound negative myself, but I would love to be optimistic here, and we will endeavor to persevere. But it does seem like if it is going to happen, I wonder if it can happen in time to save us
It's
from ourselves.
going to take a cataclysm again to make us understand it. And maybe that's okay. Maybe it has to happen.
Well,
And in talking about cyclical cataclysms tonight, I will say this. Sometimes you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And you can take that however you want. I'm not being negative. I'm not being destructive. I'm telling you the truth. The world is in a very bad place right now, no
it
matter
is
how you slice it. And it's gotten worse over the last 20 years.
much,
We thought
much.
we progressed and we stepped back.
Yeah,
And I will always myself try to fight for what I feel is right.
of course, 100%.
And
Right.
I am so far left field of everybody else with my own thinking, with my own view of the world. You know, up until last year, I think it was last year that it got destroyed. There was a thing called the Georgia Guidestones,
Oh
and
yeah, 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 yeah. It took a minute for my old mind to remember.
there was a thing
I
on there
remember
that
that.
said keep the population at 500 million to be in harmony with nature.
Right.
Do I subscribe to mass genocide? If the shoe fits, wear it. And I know that sounds really evil, but look at what we do to this planet. Look at what we do to our own environment. We damage this world so badly.
Yeah. No, it is true that we do. I don't know that I'm smart enough to make an intelligent statement about population control or anything like that. I think I would be more for it if I just did. I don't trust the people who are trying to implement it now. Is the only
I
thing.
don't either
Yeah,
because they're doing it for the
yeah,
wrong reasons.
yeah. They're doing
You
it.
see, here's what people who rail against the whole idea of climate change don't understand. And probably some of the people that are going to watch this are going to get mad at me for what I'm about to say. Climate change is a thing. It
Yeah.
happens in normal cycles. Okay, and if you
Mhm.
can't handle that, well,
Well,
sorry.
to be fair, you've probably angered people on both sides, but
Oh,
I hear
definitely,
what you're saying. I hear what
definitely. And here's the thing:
you're saying.
climate change happens. Do we affect the planet as much as some of the far lefters are saying? No. This planet will be here long after we're gone.
Yeah,
Okay. We
100%.
are we are but a aberration upon this world. An 800,000-year-old experiment. And eventually there's not going to be much of the human race left.
Yeah,
Even if we spread to the stars, even if we get out there into interstellar space, one of these days there's going to be a younger race that comes along and finds what's left of us.
yep,
And that's okay. It's perfectly
yeah.
fine. It happens.
It used when I was young, and that horrified me. But now that I'm older, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying good riddance to bad rubbish. I'm not saying that, but it's going to happen at some point. It's inevitable, and
Think about the
hopefully.
think about the lyrics from the song Dust in the Wind by Kansas.
Hmm. Hmm.
Nothing lasts forever but the earth and sky.
Yeah. Well, even that's not true.
And
Sadly.
even that one of these days is going to get wrapped up and gone. When
Yep.
our sun goes red giant and crisp this planet to a cinder,
Yep. It is
nothing
true.
lasts forever. And that's okay. You know, a lot of people have a what's the word? Existential dread at thinking about the destruction of our civilization. I
Right.
don't.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what I use as an avatar.
Yeah. Exactly.
I fully embrace the outer gods. I
I
fully embrace the Lovecraftian mythos because we think we know what's out there. We think we know what the universe wants us to do. We think we know what God wants of us. But God is so much more powerful to us. Whatever you think of as God is so much more powerful than us that it doesn't understand what we are as humans. It's so far above us that we wouldn't comprehend what it does. And that's what freaks me out about people who call God he or she. God is whatever it wants to be. Because, again, it is so far beyond us in power that we will never comprehend what it can do.
no.
Okay? And the Lovecraftian mythos is the closest we have ever gotten to that in our stories. A nigh incomprehensible set of beings that do what they want to do.
Yeah. The only thing that I would add is I hope that God is not truly malevolent, but in the end of the day, it may seem that way when we can't understand God's purposes. So,
You know, a lot of Christians like to say God moves in mysterious ways. I
yep,
will agree with that
100%.
because, again, we will never understand fully what God is doing.
No.
Okay? because
No.
again, that entity is so far above us that we will never comprehend what it is, what it wants, what it's doing. And anybody who tells you they understand God is delusional.
And you're talking about my mother-in-law now, my ex-mother-in-law, but that's for another stream, I think. So, is there any last words, any last thoughts, or what will the next topic be, so I can maybe prep?
Okay,
Uh,
so next Saturday night,
mhm.
round about 10 o'clock,
uh
we are going to be talking about. We're going to deep dive into what's out there on the Anatolia plateaus. We're going to talk about Göbekli Tepe. We're going to talk about Karahan Tepe. We're going to talk about Bongkulu Tarla and all the things that those things entail.
Okay.
Um, we will be talking about how long, theories about how long it's been there, theories about what it was meant to be,
Mhm.
theories about how long ago it started, that sort of thing, and how advanced they were.
Yeah. Well, they were
Um,
very
it,
advanced.
in the coming weeks, we will be diving into Atlantis, Lemuria. We'll be talking about Agartha at the center of the Earth. Um, just there's going to be a whole lot more topics we're going to jump into. And once we get past the lost civilization, sky's the limit, man. We could talk about anything.
Uh,
Uh, so next Saturday, anybody who catches this live, anybody who catches this on the flip, next Saturday, we will be diving into the bulk of the lost civilization idea, starting with again the Anatolia Plateau, and I think that'll about do it.
all right.
Um, just know that anything under the sun is possible, and open your mind. That's all I ask.
Yeah,
That's
that's
all
the
I ask of
thing.
anybody is open your
You
mind.
know, I closed my mind for a long time, and you know, it is what it is. But while I'm kind of slow about opening my mind, I'm trying to, I'm trying to recapture some of the, if not the beliefs, at least the curiosity of my youth and the belief that there's so much more out there to learn. And so, yes, I absolutely look forward to talking.
Okay, so now is the part of the show where we plug different areas we are at on YouTube. You can find me on Sunday nights around 8:30 Central Time on the Renovision channel for the Tales from the Dark Side show. That is a fully Star Wars set show. We talk about the comics, we talk about the movies, we talk about the shows, we talk about it all. It's all Star Wars for about 3 hours on Sunday
Oh,
night.
wow.
So join me there. The name of the channel is Renovision. And the Tales from the Dark Side show for the Sunday night. Here in about 3 or 4 minutes, you're going to find me on Jedi Bill's karaoke after hours show.
Yes.
And go ahead and plug away for yourself there,
Well, right now
Curtis.
my channel is a little bit on hold until I get my computer, but I'm thinking that likely once I get my computer back, I'll start doing. I'll keep doing this series obviously for basically again until you get tired of talking. And I'm thinking either not to compete with the karaoke, but either after this stream or on Friday nights when I get my computer fixed, I'll start doing my own live streams again and simply. Uh, I'm still new. I'm still kind of evolving what my niche is, but
And you're the tired midnight blogger, right?
I'm the tired midnight blogger. What blogs at midnight? Um, just again, just getting into the groove of the YouTube thing. So
All right. Well, I would like to thank everybody, the 4 to 5 people that have joined us tonight. I would like to thank anybody who joins us on the flip, watching it after it's already aired. By all means, I am at 50 subs. Help push me forward. I eventually hope to monetize this channel. It may take me forever, but hey, we've got the time.
there you go. There you go.
and to everyone from me, and of course Curtis, keep an open mind. Uh, Read the weird, because you never
Stay
know, you might find a kernel of truth.
and stay curious, and as he said, stay open minded. Don't think that you have. Don't think you have the patent on the truth. So,
Definitely, definitely. Alrighty, so we are going to go out on. Where is it? Take it easy, everyone.
have a good night. Appreciate you.